When you can't make it to City Hall or the school board meetings, local journalists from Duluth News Tribune will be there to report the facts and get your questions answered. Local news works for you. Stay up to date at duluthnewstribune.com.
Hello, Northlanders. It's Tuesday, January 24th. I'm Wyatt Buckner with your Duluth News Tribune Minute, presented by Minnesota Power Employees Credit Union.
The average MPECU member saves over $785 a year in better rates and lower fees. And with MPECU, every ATM is your ATM. With their free checking program, you get ATM fee reimbursements at any ATM anywhere in the U.S. Check out Minnesota Power Employees Credit Union services online at mpecu.com or visit their offices in downtown Duluth, Arrowhead Road, or Miller Trunk Highway.
Now, here's a look at today's headlines. Duluth City Councilors took a deep dive into a newly developed police drone policy Monday night, holding a public hearing to take comments. Councilors took no action, as approval was not required for the new policy to go into effect. While the policy calls for police to obtain a search warrant before deploying a drone, there are a number of exceptions. These situations would include emergencies that pose a risk of harm to a person, terrorist activity, responding to a disaster, rescue and recovery missions, to assess a potential threat, and to investigate reasonable suspicion of criminal activity in an area. Drones would not be used to monitor a protest unless a warrant is obtained. Duluth Police Chief Mike Sanoa said the policy has gone through an extensive public review before Monday's public hearing before the City Council.
There were some concerns over privacy issues because of the kind of the concept of surveillance. This really has a limited platform as far as any long-term surveillance. This is a 20-minute flight time. The places where we have utilized this drone in the past has been at a standoff out on Central Avenue, where an individual was firing at officers and citizens from a building. We used it in a negotiation of a suicidal individual inside of a vehicle parked in front of a residence. Other places where shots have been fired in the public. So that was one kind of concern. Where else are you going to use this? Are you going to use this for protests or other areas? The statute is pretty clear on our limitations, and when we need to seek a seek a search warrant in order to use any of those exceptions that are out, any of those reasonings outside of the current exceptions that are listed in Minnesota statute.
He said drones would never be equipped with weaponry and do not currently have facial recognition capabilities, and facial recognition would only be considered in the future if a warrant was issued and investigators were looking for a specific individual. Video recorded by drones must be deleted within 7 days of capture, unless the data is deemed to be part of an active criminal investigation. Minnesota legislators have started to work on securing funding for a long-anticipated passenger rail line between Duluth and the Twin Cities, with bills in the House and Senate calling for $99 million from the state general fund to start the service. If Governor Tim Walz signed off on that legislation, it would unlock $396 million in matching federal funding for the Northern Lights Express rail service, which advocates say has its best shot yet this year with the Democratic Farmer Labor Party in control of state government and a $17.6 billion surplus. It would be the first passenger rail connection between Duluth and the Twin Cities since the mid-1980s. The line would use 152 miles of existing railway track and connect Target Field in downtown Minneapolis to the depot in Duluth. Stops are planned in Coon Rapids, Cambridge, Hinckley, and Superior. Republican opposition has prevented the project from moving forward in the past. GOP lawmakers, including those along the route, have questioned if the level of ridership and length of the trip would justify the expense. The Minnesota Department of Transportation estimates a trip on the NLX would take about 2.5 hours and could possibly outperform drive times depending on weather and traffic. Transportation officials estimate up to 750,000 people will ride the train in the first year of service. Earlier estimates placed the price tag for the line, which would be run by Amtrak, at $450 million. The current proposals in the legislature would cover the cost of a $495 million project. If the state approves funding, the NLX Alliance, a coalition of interested groups along the route, says it expects the route to begin operating in about 3 years. Now for something a little different, Dan Williamson joins us with a special guest.
Thanks, Wyatt. I'm here with one of our colleagues, Duluth News Tribune Arts and Entertainment reporter Jay Gabler. And Jay, you have a story that you're working on that we'll be able to see in Wednesday's print edition as well as online prior at duluthnewstribune.com. The topic of this article, Winter at the Lake Superior Zoo. What can you tell us about this?
I was just curious as to how animals at the Lake Superior Zoo were adapting to winter. And obviously this has been a winter with an unusual amount of snow. It's been a very wintry winter here in the Northland. And I thought, gosh, you've got all these animals from all around the world. How do they fare in winter conditions? And how do zookeepers take care of animals in the dead of winter? Here's something zookeeper Jessica Phoenix told us.
All of the animals have a place to go to get in away from, if they don't have a building, they have some sort of a hut or a shelter or whatever. A lot of the hoofstock are able to get into the barn. We have a little back holding area for the tragopans, like the raven and porcupine. They have little huts that they can go into. A lot of them, for the little bit more sensitive, like the birds, have heat lamps and stuff.
Jay, what was the biggest takeaway you had from this?
Well, I used to be a sociologist, and we would say that everything seems obvious once you learn it, once you've discovered it through research, but it wasn't necessarily obvious before. And now I feel like, oh, well, I should have known. Obviously, animals have been living outside for a long time, long before humans were on the scene. And a lot of the animals the Lake Superior Zoo has are very well adapted for winter. They love the snow. They love to get outside. Yeah, their metabolism might slow down a little bit. They might take it a little bit easier. But generally speaking, they enjoy the change of seasons as much as we do.
Glad to hear that. What do you hope our audience takes away from this story?
Well, there's some big things coming up at the zoo this year. They're raising money for an all-new visitor center, that first building you walk into when you go to the zoo. And that's still a ways off, but they are working on plans that they might be unveiling sometime this year. Also, it's the zoo's 100th birthday this year, so there will be a historical exhibit and other celebrations, I imagine, celebrating the century anniversary of the Lake Superior Zoo. And all the zookeepers are really excited for the next animals scheduled to arrive at the zoo. They are building a new enclosure for red pandas, and apparently these are very social animals. They love interacting with people, and everybody's really excited to have these new animals arrive at the zoo, which is scheduled to happen sometime this spring.
I imagine very exciting. Well, Jay, we appreciate your time. Again, you can find this article in print in Wednesday's edition of the Duluth News Tribune. You can also find it online prior at duluthnewstribune.com. Wyatt, back to you.
Thanks, Dan. Now here's a look at your forecast, brought by the Women Today's 6th Annual Rosie Awards.
Good morning, Duluth area weather for today. Cloudy skies with a high in the low to mid-20s. Slight chance of a little light snow by late in the day. Northwest winds turning southeast fairly light during the day. For tonight, patchy light snow with temperatures falling to somewhere between 15 and 20. Then a little better chance of light snow on Wednesday under cloudy skies. No significant accumulation and a high in the mid to upper 20s. Turning colder on Thursday, a stronger front will blow through with a chance of snow Friday and much colder weather starting over the weekend. I'm Storm Tracker meteorologist John Wheeler.
Thank you to the Rosie Awards for their support. Northland women are a driving force in our community. They are advocates, mentors, volunteers, and leaders. Nominate a special woman you think deserves to be recognized at thewomantoday.com or by email at dearrosie@thewomantoday.com. Nominations are now open and continue through January 31st. Reporting for today's episode was done by Peter Passy and Alex DeRozier. Thank you for listening to Duluth News Tribune Minute. Have a great day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.